What if I told you that there is a version of you fully capable already existing who wakes up at 5 in the morning? Not because they have to, because they chose to, because they discovered something in those quiet hours before the world wakes up that completely changed what their life looked like. I know what you're thinking. That's not me. I'm not a morning person. I thought the same thing. But here's what I learned. Morning person is not something you're born as. It's something you choose to become. And the reason to become it. What waits for you in those hours is unlike anything else in your day. Let me show you. Chapter 1. The World Before the World Wakes Up. The first thing you notice, if you've never experienced it, is the silence. Not the silence of late night, which always carries a subtle edge, a sense of the world having withdrawn rather than not yet begun. The silence of 5 in the morning is different. It is clean, expectant, the silence of something about to start. Nadia discovered it by accident. She was 28, working in marketing for a mid-sized company in Islamabad, and she had been stuck for over a year. Not stuck in a dramatic way, not in crisis, not depressed, not failing. Stuck in the way that ambitious people sometimes get stuck in a life that is technically fine. She was good at her job but not inspired by it. She had goals but not progress on them. She had energy for other people's deadlines but not for her own dreams. One February, her heating broke. The repairman could only come at 6 in the morning, which meant she had to be up by 5:30. She set her alarm with resentment, fully expecting to hate every minute of it. But the repairman was delayed. And Nadia, already awake, already dressed, sat at her kitchen table at 5:15 in the morning with a cup of tea, and the whole world was quiet. She sat with that quiet for a moment, then she opened her laptop. She had been meaning to write for years, not professionally, just for herself. A blog, maybe, something. But the evenings were always too noisy, too full of fatigue and social obligation and the tyranny of screens. At 5:15 on a cold February morning, none of that existed. She wrote for 90 minutes. Not well at first, haltingly, rustily, the way any skill feels when you haven't used it in years, but she wrote. And when the repairman finally knocked on her door at 7, she had produced something real, something that was hers. She didn't plan to wake up the next morning. She did anyway. Chapter 2. Why Mornings Are Different. This is not woo, this is biology. There is a reason that the early morning hours feel different from other parts of the day. It is not mystical, it is neurological. Your brain has a limited supply of what researchers call decision-making energy, the cognitive capacity to focus, choose, resist distraction, and produce original thought. In the morning after sleep, this capacity is at its peak. You have not yet spent it on emails, on conflicts, on the 1,000 tiny decisions that make up a working day. You have not yet been depleted by the noise and demands of other people. This is also why, by evening, even intelligent and motivated people find themselves scrolling mindlessly, not because they are lazy, but because their cognitive battery is genuinely low. Discipline is not infinite. Willpower is not infinite. They are resources, and like all resources, they are affected by use. The early morning, specifically before the digital world turns on, before obligations arrive, before other people's needs enter your consciousness, is the window of maximum capacity for the things that matter most to you. This is the secret that elite performers across almost every domain have discovered independently. Writers who produce a novel a year often write only in the early morning. Athletes who train twice a day train their most important session first. CEOs who think most clearly journal before their phones reach them. They didn't invent the principle, they discovered it by trying it. And the discovery is available to you too. Chapter 3. The Morning Stack. Nadia developed what she called, privately, her morning stack. Not because she'd read it in a book, she'd read versions of it later and recognized what she'd already built. She built it by experimentation, by noticing what made the early morning feel powerful versus wasted. The stack had 4 elements, Each one was small. Together, they changed the quality of her entire day. First, no phone for the first 30 minutes. This was the hardest rule and the most important one. The phone, when you pick it up immediately upon waking, floods your brain with other people's reality. News, messages, social media, the demands of the world. Your brain, which was in a state of clear, open, self-directed possibility, instantly contracts around other people's agendas. 30 minutes without the phone allowed Nadia's mind to belong to herself first, to think, to remember what she wanted, to approach the day as someone with her own direction, not someone reacting to everyone else's. Second, one page of writing. Not because she planned to publish it, just because writing forces thinking in a way nothing else does. When you write, you cannot pretend to yourself that your thoughts are clearer than they are. The page reveals exactly where your thinking is vague, where your priorities are confused, where you're avoiding something. One page, 5 to 10 minutes every morning. Over 8 months, this became a body of work, not polished, not public, but real. And it contained, embedded in hundreds of pages of ordinary thinking, ideas and insights that she would never have reached if she'd never had the quiet to let them surface. Third, 20 minutes of learning. Something she chose, not required for her job, something she was genuinely curious about, a topic she'd been meaning to understand, a skill she wanted to build, a book that wasn't professional development but genuine interest. 20 minutes seems small. It is not. Over a year, 20 minutes a day is 121 hours of learning, a full university course, at a minimum. Fourth, 15 minutes on her own project. Not the job, not the household, her project. The thing that, before the morning stack, she had been saying for 2 years she was going to start but never had the time or energy for. 15 minutes protected, before the day had any claim on her. She started a small creative business, illustrations, initially just for herself and then for others in those 15 minutes. It took 18 months to generate its first real income. It took 3 years to reach the point where it was a genuine second income that gave her choices she hadn't had before. It all began in 15 minutes. Chapter 4: The War on the Snooze Button. I would be dishonest if I didn't tell you about the hardest part. The alarm. At 5 a.m. when the phone sounds and the room is dark and the bed is warm and the rest of the world is still asleep, the snooze button is an extraordinarily convincing argument. It says, just 9 more minutes. You deserve rest. This is too hard. Start tomorrow. Here is what Nadia learned about the snooze button. It is never about the 9 minutes. 9 minutes of sleep are neurologically worthless. You don't enter a meaningful sleep cycle in 9 minutes. You don't rest. You just delay consciousness. The snooze button is not about rest. It is about the decision to defer the discomfort of rising, which means it is a decision every single morning about who you are. Every time you hit snooze, you tell yourself, quietly, at the neurological level where habits are built, that comfort wins over intention, that the version of you who wants to grow is less powerful than the version of you who wants to stay the same. Every time you don't hit snooze, you tell yourself the opposite. This is why every morning is, in miniature, a rehearsal for the larger choices in your life. Nadia's method for defeating the snooze button was embarrassingly simple. She put her phone across the room. Getting out of bed to turn off the alarm meant she was already up, already standing. And once standing, the inertia of rising was easier than the inertia of returning. You don't need willpower if the environment makes the right choice automatic. Put the phone across the room. The rest follows. Chapter 5: What changes when the morning changes? 6 months into the morning stack, Nadia noticed something unexpected. It wasn't the creative project, though that was growing. It wasn't the learning, though she was noticeably more knowledgeable in areas she cared about. It wasn't even the writing, though it had become something she genuinely looked forward to. It was the way she felt about herself. There is a specific quality of self-respect that comes from keeping promises to yourself, not to your employer, not to your family, not to your social obligations, to yourself. The quiet, private promise that says, I said I would do this and I did. Most of us are excellent at keeping promises to other people and poor at keeping them to ourselves. We show up for other people's deadlines with discipline and urgency. We defer our own goals indefinitely without consequence, because who's going to hold us accountable? Who's going to be disappointed if we don't? We are that's who. And there is a kind of slow, invisible erosion of self-trust that happens when we consistently break our own promises. When we say, I'll start Monday and don't. When we say this year and it becomes another year. When the gap between who we say we are and who we actually are keeps quietly widening. The morning that protected, quiet, self-directed hour closes that gap. Not all at once, but one morning at a time, one kept promise at a time. Nadia told me the most valuable thing the morning practice gave her was not the skills or the creative work or the knowledge. It was the experience of being someone who did what she said she was going to do. That experience changed how she walked into the rest of her day. Chapter 6. This is not about mornings. I want to be clear about something. This audiobook is not really about 5 a.m. 5 a.m. is a tool, a specific, powerful tool for a specific problem, the problem of time, the problem of having a life so full of other people's needs and the world's demands that there is never space for your own growth. The morning creates space that cannot be reclaimed later because the world does not intrude on it yet. But the deeper principle, the one that matters whether you ever set an alarm for 5 in the morning or not, is this. Your most important work will not get done in the time left over. Say that again, let it land. Your most important work, the project, the skill, the creative pursuit, the goal that actually matters to you will not get done in the time left over after everything else. Because there is no time left over. There never is. There never will be. The things that matter have to be made time for. Actively, intentionally, before the day fills with everything else, before the energy runs out, before comfort says tomorrow. The morning is one way to make that time. Maybe yours is a different time. Maybe it's a lunch break or a carved-out hour after everyone in your house is asleep or a commute. The hour matters less than the habit of protecting it. But I promise you, from Nadia's experience, from the experience of every person who has built something meaningful alongside a full life, that the protected, quiet, intentional hour exists. You just have to choose it before the day chooses for you. Epilogue, the version of you that's waiting. The 5 a.m. version of you is not a fantasy. It is a choice, a repeated, daily, non-dramatic choice. The choice to protect 1 hour from the world's claim, to show up for yourself with the same discipline you show up for everyone else. That version of you, the one who writes, or learns, or builds, or simply thinks clearly in the quiet already exists. It is not something you need to become. It is something you need to make time for. The life you're dreaming about is not waiting for a miracle. It is waiting for your alarm. Set it tonight.